The winter morning air cut through downtown Chicago like a knife. Snow had fallen during the night, covering the streets in a thin white blanket that would soon turn to dirty slush. In an alley behind Murphy's Diner, three figures huddled together, under a pile of old newspapers and torn blankets. Marcus Williams, 24 years old, was the eldest of the three siblings. His dark hair was unkempt and his clothes were layered, not for fashion but for survival. Next to him sat his sister Elena, 21, whose bright green eyes still held hope despite their circumstances. The youngest was Tommy, just 17, whose boyish face made him look even younger than his years. The siblings had been living on the streets for 8 months now. Their story was not uncommon. After their mother died from cancer, the medical bills had consumed everything. Their small apartment was lost to unpaid rent, and with no other family to turn to, they found themselves with nowhere to go. Marcus had dropped out of college to care for their mother during her illness. Elena had been studying to become a teacher, and Tommy was still in high school when their world fell apart. "I found some day-old bread behind the bakery," Elena whispered, pulling out a paper bag from under her coat, "and Mrs. Chen from the Chinese restaurant gave me some leftover soup." Mrs. Chen had been kind to them. She was an elderly woman who ran a small restaurant 3 blocks away. Sometimes when her husband wasn't looking, she would slip them food or let them warm up inside during the coldest nights. Her kindness was a rare bright spot in their difficult life. Marcus looked at his younger siblings and felt the familiar weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had promised their mother he would take care of Elena and Tommy no matter what. Every morning he woke up determined to find a way to change their situation. He had been applying for jobs, but without a permanent address or proper clothes. For interviews, it was nearly impossible. "Today might be different," Marcus said, trying to sound confident. "I have an interview at the construction site on 5th Street. The foreman said they might need extra hands." Tommy pulled his thin jacket tighter around himself. "What if we get separated?" he asked. It was his constant fear. The streets were dangerous, especially for someone his age. There were shelters, but they were often full, and the siblings preferred to stay together rather than risk being split up. "We stick together, always," Elena said firmly. "That's what family does." The siblings had developed routines to survive. Marcus would look for work during the day, while Elena and Tommy would find safe places to rest and sometimes help with small tasks for shop owners in exchange for food or a few dollars. They had learned which areas to avoid, which police officers were sympathetic, and which business owners might offer help. Their situation had taught them to be resourceful. Marcus had learned to fix small appliances and help with manual labor. Elena used her education to help other homeless people write letters or fill out forms. Tommy, despite his young age, had become excellent at finding discarded items that could be useful or traded. As the morning sun began to warm the alley, the siblings prepared to start another day. They carefully folded their blankets and newspapers, hiding them in a spot where they hoped they would be safe until evening. Personal belongings were precious when you had so few of them. "Remember what Mom used to say?" Elena asked as they prepared to leave their makeshift shelter. "She said that even in the darkest times we should look for ways to help others. She believed that kindness always comes back to you." Their mother, Sarah Williams, had been a nurse at the local hospital. Even when she was sick, she had continued to care for others. She taught her children that their circumstances didn't define their character. She had made them promise to always help others when they could, even if they had little to give themselves. This lesson had stayed with the siblings throughout their time on the streets. Despite having almost nothing, they often shared what little they had with others who were struggling. Marcus had helped an elderly homeless man find medical care. Elena had taught reading to children at the local community center whenever she could. Tommy had returned lost wallets to their owners without taking any money, even when he was hungry. As they walked through the downtown streets, the siblings passed well-dressed people hurrying to their offices and warm cars. Some people looked away when they saw the homeless siblings, uncomfortable with the reminder of how quickly life could change. Others showed small kindnesses, a smile, a few coins, or sometimes just acknowledgement that they existed. The siblings had learned not to take the indifference personally. They understood that most people were dealing with their own problems, and fears. But they had also learned to recognize genuine kindness and to be grateful for it no matter how small. Marcus checked his watch, a gift from his mother that he had managed to keep safe. His interview was in 2 hours. He needed to find a place to clean up and make himself presentable. Elena and Tommy would wait for him at the public library, where they could stay warm and Elena could continue reading the books she loved. "Whatever happens today," Marcus said to his siblings, "we face it together." The three young people walked down the busy street, just another part of the city's landscape that most people barely noticed. They had no idea that this day would change their lives forever. They didn't know that their simple act of helping someone in need would lead to opportunities they couldn't imagine. Their story was about to take a turn that would prove their mother's words about kindness coming back to those who give it. The siblings who had lost everything were about to discover that sometimes when you have nothing left to lose, you have everything to gain. As they reached the corner where they would separate for the morning, Elena squeezed her brother's hands. "Today feels different," she said softly. "I can't explain it, but I think something good is going to happen." Neither Marcus nor Tommy dismissed her feeling. In their months on the street, they had learned to trust their instincts and each other. They had survived this long by sticking together and believing that better days would come. The morning was just beginning, and none of them could imagine what the day would bring. Marcus walked toward the construction site with more hope than he had felt in weeks. The foreman, Mr. Rodriguez, had seemed genuine when he said there might be work available. As he passed through the business district, Marcus tried to imagine what it would be like to have steady work again, to be able to provide properly for Elena and Tommy. Meanwhile, Elena and Tommy made their way to the public library. The building was a sanctuary for them, warm, safe, and welcoming. The librarian, Ms. Johnson, had gotten to know them over the past few months. She never made them feel unwelcome, even though their appearance sometimes drew stares from other visitors. "Good morning, Elena," Ms. Johnson said quietly as they entered. "The new books you requested came in yesterday." Elena smiled gratefully. Reading had always been her escape, and even now, books provided comfort and hope. She had been reading everything she could about education and social work, still dreaming of the day when she could return to school and help others. Tommy settled into his favorite corner with a book about astronomy. Before their lives changed, he had dreamed of becoming an engineer. The stars still fascinated him, representing a world beyond their current struggles. Sometimes, lying in the alley at night, he would look up at the few stars visible through the city lights and remember his dreams. At the construction site, Marcus met with Mr. Rodriguez. The older man looked at Marcus's worn clothes and tired face with understanding rather than judgment. Rodriguez had grown up poor himself and recognized someone who was trying hard despite difficult circumstances. "The work is hard," Rodriguez explained. 10 hours a day, heavy lifting, working in all weather. "But it pays fair, and I treat my workers with respect. You look like someone who's not afraid of hard work." Marcus nodded eagerly. "I'll do whatever needs to be done. I have family depending on me." "Family is important," Rodriguez agreed. "When can you start?" "Right now if you need me." Rodriguez smiled. "I like that attitude. Let's start with today and see how it goes." As Marcus began his first day of work, in months 20 blocks away, a very different morning was unfolding in the penthouse office of Richardson Industries. James Richardson, 55 years old and worth over $200 million, sat behind his massive mahogany desk reviewing quarterly reports. Richardson had built his fortune in real estate and technology investments. He was known throughout the city as a shrewd businessman, but also as someone who kept to himself. His days were filled with meetings, phone calls, and decisions that affected hundreds of employees and millions of dollars. Richardson's assistant, Patricia, knocked on his office door. "Mr. Richardson, your car is ready for the client meeting downtown." Richardson gathered his papers and headed toward the elevator. The meeting was important, a potential acquisition that could add $50 million to his company's value. His mind was focused on numbers and negotiations as he stepped into his private elevator. The elevator descended smoothly from the 40th floor, as it had thousands of times before. Richardson barely noticed the movement, his attention on his phone as he reviewed last-minute details for the meeting. He had no reason to think this ride would be any different from any other. But as the elevator passed the 20th floor, something went wrong. A cable snapped with a sound like a gunshot. The elevator shuddered and began to fall, slowly at first, then faster. The emergency brakes engaged, but they were not enough to stop the descent completely. Richardson felt his stomach drop as the elevator lurched. His phone flew from his hands as he grabbed the handrail. The lights flickered, and an automated voice began announcing an emergency. The elevator was falling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. 20 floors below, the elevator came to a violent stop between the second and third floors. Richardson was thrown to the ground, hitting his head against the wall. Pain shot through his body, and he could feel blood trickling down his face. The elevator car was tilted at an angle, and he could smell smoke. In the library, Elena looked up from her book with a strange feeling. She had always been sensitive to others' emotions, and something felt wrong. Tommy noticed her expression. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Elena whispered. "Something's happening. Something bad." At the construction site, Marcus was loading materials onto a truck when he heard sirens in the distance. Fire trucks and ambulances were racing toward the downtown business district. He paused in his work, saying a silent prayer that whoever needed help would receive it. Back in the elevator shaft, Richardson tried to understand what had happened. His head was spinning, and he could barely see in the dim emergency lighting. He reached for his phone, but it was shattered on the floor. The elevator's emergency phone was dead. He tried to push the emergency button, but nothing happened. The elevator was stuck, and worse, he could smell something burning. Smoke was beginning to seep into the car from somewhere below. Richardson realized with growing terror that he might die here, trapped in this metal box. He pounded on the doors and shouted for help, but the elevator was between floors, and the building's business areas were largely empty at this time of day. Most employees used the main elevators on the other side of the building. His private elevator was in a section that few people visited. Minutes passed like hours. The smoke was getting thicker, and Richardson was finding it harder to breathe. He had survived hostile business deals, economic downturns, and personal tragedies, but he had never faced anything like this. For the first time in years, James Richardson felt truly helpless. Outside the building, fire trucks were arriving. Someone had reported seeing smoke coming from the Richardson Industries building, but the firefighters were having trouble locating the source of the problem. The building was massive, with multiple elevator shafts and dozens of floors. Elena and Tommy had left the library and were walking toward the area where Marcus was working. Elena's feeling that something was wrong had grown stronger, and she felt compelled to move. Tommy followed his sister, trusting her instincts as he always did. As they walked past the Richardson Industries building, Elena stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" she asked Tommy. Tommy listened carefully. Over the noise of the city traffic and the sirens, he could hear something else, a faint sound of someone calling for help. It seemed to be coming from inside the building. "Someone's in trouble," Elena said with certainty. They looked at the building's entrance. Security guards were keeping people away while firefighters searched for the source of the smoke. But Elena and Tommy could hear the cries for help more clearly now, and they seemed to be coming from a different part of the building. The siblings looked at each other. They had very little in their lives, but they had their mother's teaching about helping others. Someone was in danger, and they were in a position to help. Without discussing it, they both knew what they had to do. Their decision in that moment would change not only their lives, but the life of the man trapped in the elevator, though they had no way of knowing it yet. Elena and Tommy circled around to the side of the Richardson Industries building, away from where the firefighters were concentrating their search. The cries for help were clearer here, and they seemed to be coming from somewhere inside the wall itself. "It's coming from below ground level," Tommy said, pressing his ear against the building's exterior wall. His months on the street had sharpened his senses and made him more observant about his surroundings. Elena noticed a small ventilation grate near the sidewalk level. The sound was definitely coming from there. "Someone's trapped in there," she said urgently. "We need to get help." They ran back toward the main entrance where fire trucks and police cars had gathered. Elena approached the fire chief, a tall man with gray hair who was coordinating the search efforts. "Excuse me," Elena said, trying to get his attention. "We heard someone calling for help from the other side of the building." The fire chief looked at the two young people with their worn clothes and tired faces. In the midst of the emergency, he barely registered who they were. "We're searching the building systematically," he said dismissively. "Stay back from the area for your own safety," Elena persisted. "But the voice is coming from underground, near the sidewall. I think someone might be trapped in an elevator." "We've checked all the elevators," the fire chief replied, already turning away to speak with his crew. Tommy grabbed Elena's arm. "He's not listening to us," he said quietly. "But we know what we heard." Elena felt frustrated. She knew someone was in trouble, but because of how she and Tommy looked, no one was taking them seriously. She had experienced this kind of dismissal many times in recent months. When you were homeless, people often acted as if your words didn't matter. "What if we try to help ourselves?" Tommy suggested. Elena looked at her younger brother. "That could be dangerous. But what if whoever is trapped doesn't have time to?" "Wait," Tommy replied. "What if the firefighters can't hear them from where they're searching?" Elena made a decision. "Okay, but we have to be careful." They returned to the side of the building where they had heard the voice. The sound was definitely coming from behind the ventilation grate, which was about 3 feet square and secured, with screws. Tommy had learned to be resourceful during their time on the streets, and he had a small multi-tool that he had found and repaired. "Can you get it open?" Elena asked. Tommy examined the grate. The screws were old and somewhat rusted. "I think so, but it'll take a few minutes." As Tommy worked on the screws, Elena kept watch and listened to the voice from inside. It was a man's voice, and he sounded scared and desperate. The smell of smoke was getting stronger through the grate. "Hang on," Elena called through the grate. "We're going to help you." Inside the elevator, Richardson heard the voice and felt a surge of hope. "Thank God," he called back. "I'm trapped in an elevator. There's smoke and I can't breathe very well." "What floor are you on?" Elena asked. "I was going down from the 40th floor. I think I'm stuck between floors somewhere low in the building." Tommy had managed to loosen 2 of the screws. The grate was heavy, but it was starting to move. "Almost." "Got it," he told Elena. At the construction site, Marcus had finished his first task and was getting his next assignment from Rodriguez when he noticed the increased emergency activity in the direction of downtown. Something big was happening. "That's the Richardson building," Rodriguez said, following Marcus's gaze. "Looks like some kind of fire or emergency." Marcus felt the same strange feeling that Elena had experienced earlier. "Mr. Rodriguez, I need to check on my family. They were going to be in that area today." Rodriguez looked at Marcus with understanding. "Family comes first," he said. "Go. Come back tomorrow if everything's okay." Marcus ran toward the Richardson building, his heart pounding with worry about Elena and Tommy. As he got closer, he could see the fire trucks and the crowd of people being kept back from the building. Meanwhile, Tommy had removed enough screws to shift the grate. Behind it was a ventilation shaft that seemed to connect to the elevator shaft. The voice of the trapped man was much clearer now. "What's your name?" Elena called into the shaft. "James Richardson," came the reply. "I own this building. The elevator fell, and now there's smoke." Elena and Tommy looked at each other with surprise. They had never heard of James Richardson personally, but they knew the Richardson Industries name from the signs around the city. This was obviously someone important. "Mr. Richardson, my name is Elena, and I'm here with my brother Tommy. We're going to try to help you." Tommy was examining the ventilation shaft. It was narrow but might be wide enough for him to crawl through. "I think I can fit," he told Elena. "It's too dangerous," Elena protested. "But he might die if we don't do something," Tommy replied. "The firefighters are looking in the wrong place and the smoke is getting worse." Elena wrestled with the decision. Tommy was her baby brother and she had promised to protect him. But someone's life was at stake, and they might be the only ones who could help. If you go in there, you take this, Elena said, handing Tommy a small flashlight that she kept in her coat pocket. And you be very careful. If it gets dangerous, you come right back out. Tommy nodded and began to crawl into the ventilation shaft. The space was tight, and he had to move slowly, but he was small and agile. He had learned to navigate tight spaces during their months on the streets. As Tommy made his way through the shaft, Elena called encouragement to Richardson. My brother is coming to help you. Just hang on. Why are you helping me? Richardson asked. You don't even know me. Elena thought about her mother's words about kindness. Because you need help, she said simply. That's what people should do for each other. Inside the ventilation system, Tommy could see light ahead, the emergency lighting in the elevator shaft. He could also smell the smoke more strongly. He reached an opening where the ventilation shaft connected to the elevator shaft and could see down to where the elevator car was stuck at an angle. Mr. Richardson, Tommy called down. I can see you. Are you hurt? Richardson looked up and saw a young face peering down at him from an opening in the shaft wall. I hit my head, and my shoulder hurts, but I can move. The smoke is getting thicker. Tommy assessed the situation. The elevator was stuck about 15 feet below him, but there were maintenance ladders and cables in the shaft that he might be able to use to reach the elevator car. At that moment, Marcus arrived at the building and immediately spotted Elena, near the side wall. He ran over to her. Elena, what's going on? Where's Tommy? Elena quickly explained what they had discovered and what Tommy was doing. Marcus looked at the ventilation opening with alarm. He's in there alone? Someone had to help, Elena said. The firefighters weren't listening to us. Marcus understood immediately. His siblings had found someone in trouble and had acted to help, just as their mother had taught them. Now he needed to help too. What can I do? Marcus asked. Inside the shaft, Tommy was carefully climbing down toward the elevator car. The maintenance ladder was old but seemed sturdy enough to hold his weight. As he got closer, he could see that Richardson was conscious but looked pale and scared. The three homeless siblings who had started the day with nothing but hope were now the only chance for one of the city's wealthiest men to survive. Tommy reached the top of the elevator car and looked down through the emergency hatch. Richardson was sitting against the wall of the tilted elevator, holding his head. The smoke was definitely thicker now, and Tommy could see sparks coming from somewhere below the elevator car. Mr. Richardson, I'm Tommy, he called down. I'm going to try to get you out of there. You're just a kid, Richardson said, looking up at Tommy's young face. This is too dangerous. I may be young, but I'm not giving up on you, Tommy replied. He had learned in recent months that age didn't always determine courage or ability. Above ground, Marcus had taken charge of the situation. He sent Elena to get the firefighters while he positioned himself at the ventilation opening to maintain communication with Tommy. Tommy, can you hear me? Marcus called into the shaft. I can hear you, Tommy called back. The elevator is damaged, and there's definitely a fire starting somewhere below it. Mr. Richardson is hurt but awake. Elena reached the fire chief, who was still coordinating the search on the other side of the building. This time she was more forceful. Sir, my brother is inside the building right now helping someone who's trapped in an elevator. You need to come with me immediately. The fire chief looked at Elena more carefully this time. Something in her voice and manner made him pay attention. Show me, he said. Elena led the fire chief and two of his firefighters back to where Marcus was maintaining communication with Tommy. When the fire chief heard Tommy's voice coming from inside the building and understood the situation, his entire demeanor changed. Son, this is Fire Chief Martinez, he called into the shaft. What's your situation down there? Tommy quickly explained what he could see, the damaged elevator, the injured man, and the growing signs of fire below the car. We're going to get proper equipment and more people to help, Chief Martinez said. But this is very dangerous. Can you get back up safely? I think so, Tommy replied. But I don't think Mr. Richardson can wait much longer. The smoke is getting really bad. Inside the elevator, Richardson was struggling to stay conscious. The combination of his head injury and the increasing smoke was making him dizzy and weak. He looked up at the opening where Tommy was positioned. "Son," Richardson said weakly, "if something happens to me, I want you to know that what you're doing is the bravest thing anyone has ever done for me." Tommy felt a surge of determination. His mother had always told him that when someone needed help, you didn't wait for someone else to step up. You did what you could with what you had. "Mr. Richardson, I'm coming down to help you climb out," Tommy said. "It's too dangerous," Richardson protested. "My mom used to say that the right thing to do is usually not the easy thing to do," Tommy replied. Above ground, more firefighters were arriving with specialized equipment. Chief Martinez was organizing a proper rescue operation, but it would take time to set up. Time that Richardson might not have. Marcus made a decision. "Chief, I'm going in to help my brother." "Sir, you're not trained for this," Chief Martinez said. "But I know my brother, and I'm not letting him face this alone," Marcus replied. "That man down there is going to die if we don't act now." Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. "Be careful," she said. "I can't lose both my brothers." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You won't. We're all coming back." Marcus crawled into the ventilation shaft, following the same path Tommy had taken. He was larger than Tommy and had to move more carefully, but he was motivated by the need to help his brother and save Richardson's life. In the elevator shaft, Tommy had climbed down to the roof of the elevator car. The emergency hatch was partially open, and he could see Richardson more clearly now. The older man was pale and breathing with difficulty. "Mr. Richardson, can you stand up?" Tommy asked. Richardson struggled to his feet with Tommy's help. He was unsteady but determined to try. "What do you need me to do?" "There's a maintenance ladder on the wall of the shaft," Tommy explained. "If you can climb up about 10 feet, my brother is coming to help pull you up the rest of the way." Richardson looked at the ladder. Under normal circumstances, it would not have been difficult for him, but with his injuries and the smoke, it seemed impossible. "I don't think I can make it," he admitted. "Yes, you can," Tommy said firmly. "My family didn't survive living on the streets by giving up when things got hard. You're stronger than you think." Richardson stared at the young man who was risking his life to save him. "You've been living on the streets?" "For 8 months, Tommy said. "But that doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting you out of here safely." At that moment, Marcus reached the opening in the shaft wall. "Tommy, I'm here." "Marcus," Tommy called back with relief. "Mr. Richardson is hurt, but I think between the two of us, we can get him up." Marcus assessed the situation quickly. The elevator was more damaged than he had expected, and the signs of fire were more serious. They needed to move fast. "Mr. Richardson, this is Marcus, Tommy's older brother," Marcus called down. "We're going to get you out, but you need to help us. Can you reach the ladder?" With Tommy's support, Richardson managed to grab hold of the maintenance ladder. Each rung was a struggle, but he climbed slowly upward. Tommy climbed alongside him, ready to catch him if he fell. "That's it," Marcus encouraged from above. "Just a few more rungs." Outside, Elena was pacing nervously while Chief Martinez and his team prepared their equipment. More emergency vehicles had arrived and a crowd was gathering. The local news had gotten word of the rescue and camera crews were setting up. "Ma'am, are those your brothers in there?" a reporter asked Elena. Elena looked at the reporter with surprise. She wasn't used to anyone paying attention to her or her family. "Yes," she said simply. "They're trying to save someone's life." Inside the shaft, Richardson had reached the point where Marcus could grab his hands and help pull him up. The older man was exhausted and in pain, but he was almost to safety. "I've got you," Marcus said, gripping Richardson's wrists. "Tommy, can you push from below?" Working together, the two brothers managed to get Richardson up to the opening in the shaft wall. From there, they helped him crawl through the ventilation system toward the exit. When they finally emerged from the building, Richardson collapsed on the sidewalk, breathing heavily, but alive. Paramedics rushed over to examine him while firefighters helped Tommy and Marcus. Richardson looked up at the 3 siblings who had saved his life. Elena was kneeling beside him, making sure he was okay. Tommy was being checked by a paramedic for smoke inhalation. Marcus was talking to the fire chief about what they had found inside. Why? Richardson asked Elena weakly. Why did you risk so much to help a stranger? Elena smiled at him gently. Because that's what people should do for each other, she said. Our mother taught us that kindness always comes back to you. Richardson closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the realization that 3 young people who had nothing had given everything to save his life. As the paramedics prepared to take him to the hospital, he knew that this day had changed him forever. The next morning, Elena, Tommy, and Marcus woke up in their usual spot behind Murphy's diner, but everything felt different. The local newspaper had run a front-page story about the rescue, complete with photos of the 3 siblings helping Richardson. The headline read, "Homeless Heroes Save Millionaire's Life." Elena had bought a copy of the newspaper with some of their last coins, and they read it together in amazement. They had never seen their names in print before, and the article described them as heroes. Listen to this, Elena read aloud. The Williams siblings, who have been homeless for 8 months, risked their lives to save businessman James Richardson. When firefighters were unable to locate him in time, their quick thinking and bravery prevented what could have been a tragedy. Tommy looked at the newspaper photo that showed him emerging from the ventilation shaft. I look so dirty, he said, self-consciously. You look like a hero, Marcus corrected him, because that's what you are. At Chicago General Hospital, Richardson was recovering from his injuries. The doctors had treated him for smoke inhalation and a concussion, and he was expected to make a full recovery, but his thoughts were entirely focused on the 3 young people who had saved his life. Richardson's assistant, Patricia, had been dealing with reporters and business associates who wanted to know about his condition. But Richardson had asked her to find out everything she could about the Williams siblings. Their situation is exactly as reported, Patricia told him, as she sat beside his hospital bed. They lost their home 8 months ago after their mother died from cancer. The medical bills and funeral costs consumed their savings. Marcus had to drop out of college. Elena left her teaching program, and Tommy never finished high school. Richardson listened intently. Where are they living now? On the streets. They stay together and try to find work when they can. According to the social worker I spoke with, they've refused to be separated even when that might mean better individual accommodations in different shelters. They stayed together as a family, Richardson said quietly. Just like they stayed to help me when they could have just walked away. Richardson had spent a sleepless night thinking about his life. He was 55 years old, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and had more possessions than he could ever use. But when his life was in danger, it had been 3 homeless young people who had saved him. 3 people who had every reason to be bitter about life had instead chosen to help a stranger. Patricia, I want to do something for them, Richardson said, but I want to do it right. I don't want this to be just a gesture or a publicity stunt. What did you have in mind? Patricia asked. Richardson thought carefully before answering. I want to offer them a chance to rebuild their lives, but I want them to choose how to do it. They've already shown more courage and character than most people I know. That afternoon, Patricia arrived at Murphy's diner with a message for the Williams siblings. She found them sitting at a table in the back, sharing a meal that Mrs. Chen from the Chinese restaurant had provided. Elena, Marcus, Tommy, Patricia said as she approached their table. My name is Patricia Henderson. I work for James Richardson. He would like to meet with you. The siblings looked at each other uncertainly. They weren't sure what Richardson might want from them. Are we in trouble? Tommy asked. We didn't mean to cause problems with the rescue. Patricia smiled warmly. You're not in trouble at all. Quite the opposite. Mr. Richardson wants to thank you properly and discuss how he might help you. We don't need charity, Marcus said quietly but firmly. We just did what anyone should do. That's exactly what Mr. Richardson expected you to say, Patricia replied. He's not talking about charity. He's talking about opportunities. The siblings agreed to meet with Richardson the next day. They spent the evening wondering what he might want and what kind of opportunities he was talking about. The meeting took place in Richardson's office, which had been temporarily set up in a different building while repairs were made to his own. When the siblings arrived, Richardson was waiting for them personally, despite his bandaged head and the arm he kept in a sling. "Please sit down," Richardson said, gesturing to comfortable chairs around a small conference table. "First, I want to thank you again for saving my life. The doctors told me that if I had been in that elevator much longer, the smoke inhalation would have been fatal. We're just glad you're okay," Elena said sincerely. Richardson studied the three young people sitting across from him. Despite their worn clothes and the hardship visible in their faces, they carried themselves with dignity and genuine concern for others. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," Richardson continued. "You three had every reason to walk past my building and mind your own business. You're dealing with your own serious problems. But instead, you risked your lives to help someone you didn't even know." "Our mother taught us to help people when we can," Tommy said simply. "Your mother must have been an extraordinary woman," Richardson said. "And she raised extraordinary children." The siblings exchanged glances. They still missed their mother, terribly, and hearing someone speak of her with respect meant more to them than Richardson could know. "I want to offer you something," Richardson continued, "but I want you to understand that this isn't charity, and it's not because I feel guilty about having money while you don't. This is about recognizing talent, character, and potential." He paused and looked at each of them. "I've built my business by identifying people with qualities that can't be taught: integrity, courage, loyalty, and the ability to act decisively when it matters. You three demonstrated all of those qualities when you saved my life." Richardson opened a folder on the table. "Marcus, I understand you were studying business administration before you had to leave college. I'm offering you a position in my company as a management trainee. You'll start with a good salary, full benefits, and the opportunity to complete your degree through our corporate education program." Marcus stared at Richardson in shock. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a career," Richardson corrected, "with advancement based on your performance and dedication." He turned to Elena. "Elena, you were studying to be a teacher. I serve on the board of several educational foundations. I can arrange for you to complete your degree and provide financial support while you do so. After graduation, I'll help you find a position at one of the best schools in the city." Elena felt tears welling up in her eyes. The dream she had thought was lost forever was suddenly within reach again. Finally, Richardson looked at Tommy. "Tommy, you're 17 years old and you never got to finish high school. I'm prepared to pay for you to attend one of the best private schools in Chicago, with full support for housing, meals, and everything you need. After graduation, if you want to go to college, that will be covered as well." Tommy couldn't speak. He had given up hope of ever returning to school, thinking his education was over forever. "There's one condition," Richardson added. "You have to stay together as a family. I've seen what you can accomplish when you support each other." "I don't want that to change." The siblings sat in stunned silence. After months of struggling just to survive each day, they were being offered the chance to rebuild their lives completely. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus asked quietly. Richardson thought about how to answer. "Yesterday, I was trapped in a metal box thinking I was going to die. I had all the money in the world, but it couldn't save me. What saved me was three people who had nothing but still chose to give everything to help a stranger." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "I've spent my whole life accumulating wealth and possessions, but you three showed me what real value looks like. You showed me what kind of people I want to surround myself with." Richardson turned back to them. "I'm not doing this just for you. I'm doing it for me too. I want to be part of something meaningful. Helping you rebuild your lives and achieve your dreams is the most meaningful thing I can imagine doing with my resources." Elena wiped tears from her eyes. "Our mother always said that kindness comes back to you. She would be so amazed to see this happening. She would be proud of who you've become," Richardson said. All three of you, the siblings, looked at each other, and without words they all knew what their answer would be. They had supported each other through the worst time of their lives. Now they would support each other as they built new lives. "Yes," Marcus said, "for all of them. We accept your offer." Richardson smiled, the first genuine smile he had felt in years. Then let's start planning your futures. Over the next hour, they discussed practical details. Richardson arranged for them to move into a comfortable apartment immediately. Patricia would coordinate their schedules and help them with anything they needed. Most importantly, they would never have to worry about basic necessities again. As the meeting ended, Richardson shook hands with each of them. I want you to know that this isn't the end of our relationship. It's the beginning. I hope we'll be friends for many years to come. The siblings left Richardson's office feeling as if they were in a dream. In less than 24 hours, their lives had completely changed. They went from having nothing to having opportunities they had never imagined possible. But the most important thing hadn't changed at all. They still had each other, and they still had the values their mother had taught them about helping others and staying true to what was right. As they walked down the street together, Elena reached out and took her brother's hands. Mom was right, she said softly. Kindness really does come back to you. Marcus squeezed her hand. And we'll never forget where we came from or how this happened. Tommy nodded. When we're successful, we'll help other people the same way Mr. Richardson is helping us. The three siblings walked toward their new life together, carrying with them the lessons they had learned on the streets and the love their mother had given them. They had lost everything once, but they had never lost hope. Now that hope was about to become reality. 5 years later, the Williams siblings stood together in the ballroom of Chicago's Grand Hotel, surrounded by hundreds of guests at the annual Richardson Foundation Charity Gala. The foundation, established by James Richardson with the siblings as founding board members, had raised millions of dollars to help homeless families get back on their feet. Marcus, now 29, was dressed in a sharp business suit that fit him perfectly. He had completed his degree while working at Richardson Industries and had been promoted to Vice President of Community Development. His job involved identifying and implementing programs to help disadvantaged communities, work that gave him deep satisfaction because he understood the challenges firsthand. Elena, 26, wore an elegant blue dress and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had found her calling. She had graduated summa cum laude with her teaching degree and now served as principal of the James Richardson Academy, a school specifically designed to help children from struggling families. The school provided not just education but also meals, clothing, and support services for entire families. Tommy, now 22, looked handsome and confident in his tuxedo. He had graduated as valedictorian from his private high school and was completing his final year at Northwestern University, studying engineering with a focus on sustainable housing design. His senior project involved designing affordable, efficient homes for people transitioning out of homelessness. The three siblings had not only rebuilt their own lives, but had dedicated themselves to helping others in similar situations. Their foundation had helped over 2,000 families find stable housing and employment in the past 3 years. James Richardson, now 60 and healthier than he had been in years, stood at the podium, addressing the crowd. His friendship with the Williams siblings had changed him profoundly. He had discovered that using his wealth to create meaningful change brought him more satisfaction than any business deal ever had. 5 years ago, Richardson said to the assembled guests, I thought I knew what success looked like. I measured everything in profits and acquisitions. Then 3 remarkable young people saved my life and taught me what real success actually means. He gestured toward the siblings who stood near the front of the room. Marcus, Elena, and Tommy Williams showed me that success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you contribute. It's about how you treat people when you have nothing to gain from helping them. The audience applauded warmly. Many of the guests had heard the story of the rescue, but they had also seen the work the siblings had done since then. The Williams name was now associated with innovation in social services and genuine care for people in need. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that the Richardson Foundation has reached a new milestone. Richardson continued, thanks to the leadership of the Williams siblings and the generosity of supporters like you, we have officially helped our 3,000th family achieve stable housing and independence. The applause was thunderous. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she thought about all the families they had helped. Each one represented people who had been in situations similar to what she and her brothers had faced. After Richardson's speech, the siblings mingled with guests, sharing stories about their work and listening to others who wanted to help. They had learned to be comfortable in these settings, but they never forgot where they had come from. During a quiet moment, Marcus, Elena, and Tommy stepped out onto the hotel's balcony for some air. The city lights spread out below them, including the building where their rescue of Richardson had taken place. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had just walked past that building that day?" Tommy asked. Elena smiled. "I don't think we could have walked past. Mom raised us to help when we see someone in need." "Besides," Marcus added, "if we had walked past, we wouldn't be who we are today, not just because of the opportunities James gave us, but because of what we learned about ourselves that day." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, each thinking about their journey. From sleeping in alleys to standing in ballrooms, their lives had changed dramatically, but their core values remained the same. "I have something to tell you both," Elena said, her voice filled with excitement. "I got a call yesterday from the Department of Education. They want to expand our school model to 10 other cities across the country." Marcus and Tommy looked at their sister with pride and amazement. "That's incredible," Marcus said. "You're going to help so many more children." "We're going to help them," Elena corrected. "I can't do this without my family." Tommy grinned. "Count me in. Actually, my engineering professor has been working on some designs that could be perfect for the new schools. We could build facilities that serve as both schools and community centers. And I can handle the business side," Marcus added. "Richardson Industries has been looking for more ways to expand our community investment programs." As they talked excitedly about their plans, James Richardson found them on the balcony. He had been looking for them to share some news of his own. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Richardson said as he joined them. "Never," Elena said warmly. Over the years, Richardson had become like a father figure to all three siblings. Their relationship had grown far beyond gratitude into genuine love and respect. "I wanted you to be the first to know," Richardson said with a smile. "I've decided to step back from day-to-day operations at Richardson Industries. I'm going to focus entirely on the foundation and our charitable work." The siblings looked at him with concern. "Is everything okay with your health?" Tommy asked. "My health is fine," Richardson laughed. "Better than it's been in years, actually. This is about priorities. You three taught me that the most important thing I can do with my life is help others. I want to spend my remaining years doing exactly that." He looked at Marcus. "Which brings me to something else. I've spoken with the board of directors and they've agreed to offer you the position of chief operating officer at Richardson Industries." Marcus stared at Richardson in shock. "You're offering me your job?" "I'm offering you the chance to run a company that can make a real difference in people's lives," Richardson said. "You've proven you can manage programs, inspire people, and make sound decisions. Most importantly, you understand that business should serve the community, not just profit." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the trust Richardson was placing in him. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Richardson replied. "You don't have to decide tonight." Elena put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Whatever you decide, we'll support you." As the evening continued, the siblings returned to the ballroom for the final part of the program. They were presenting awards to families who had successfully transitioned from homelessness to independence through their programs. One by one, families came forward to share their stories. There was Maria Santos, a single mother who had lost her job and apartment but was now a certified nurse. There was David Chen, a veteran who had struggled with housing after his military service and was now a successful carpenter. There was the Johnson family, who had been living in their car for 6 months and were now homeowners. Each story reminded the siblings of their own journey and reinforced their commitment to the work they were doing. They saw themselves in these families, people who had faced impossible circumstances but had found the strength to rebuild with help and support. As the evening wound down, the three siblings found themselves back in the hotel lobby, saying goodbye to guests and thanking supporters. They were tired but energized by the success of the event and the knowledge that their work was making a real difference. You know what the best part of tonight was? Elena said as they waited for their car. What? Tommy asked, seeing all those families who are thriving now, knowing that we helped make that possible. Marcus nodded. Mom would be so proud of what we've accomplished together. She would be proud of who we've become, Tommy added. Not just successful, but people who use that success to help others. As they drove home to the comfortable house they now shared, the siblings reflected on how far they had come. They had gone from having nothing to having everything they needed. But more importantly, they had learned that having everything you need means being able to help others get what they need too. Their mother's lesson about kindness coming back to those who give it had proven true in ways they never could have imagined. But they had also learned that the real reward for kindness isn't what comes back to you. It's the knowledge that you've made someone else's life better. The three homeless siblings who had saved a millionaire's life had become successful in their own right. But their greatest success was not measured in money or status. It was measured in the thousands of lives they had touched and the hope they had restored to families who had lost everything. Their story had come full circle from receiving help to giving it, from being rescued to becoming rescuers themselves, and they knew that this was just the beginning of the good they could do, together.